I wanted to welcome everyone today to a very special Zoom meeting with Cruz and Cyrus Bakhtiari. Hi, Cyrus. I've had the pleasure of knowing them now for a couple of years and being very close to their journey with CGD. Crystal got in touch soon after Cyrus was diagnosed, and she has been learning about CGD, gaining education, making her her path and decisions along the way. Every step along the way, she's made her decisions that have led her to this point. And we are so excited to welcome her and Cyrus today and learn more about their CGD experience, how they went from diagnosis to the NIH, where they underwent, well, I say they because every mother feels like they undergo transplant with their son. I certainly felt that way when I experienced transplant at Duke University Hospital with my son, Sebastian. Cyrus underwent a special new conditioning regimen that involves monoclonal antibodies that specifically target stem cells. So it's considered to be less toxic than traditional chemotherapy and radiation as we know it. And they're one of the first patients, in fact, the first that we've had on Zoom. And, you know, we pride ourselves at CGDAA to talk to people who've gone through innovative treatment for CGD, whether it's haploidentical transplants or various other ways, whether they're living well with CGD or if they are going through a curative option. So without further ado, let's turn the stage over to Crystal. And Crystal, could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more about wonderful Cyrus, who's very precocious, very bright, very cute, and how you came to be diagnosed and what led you to making the decision to undergo transplant at the NIH.
Thanks, Felicia, for holding space for us. And I'm grateful for the CGDAA. And it's so nice to see so many CGD members and family and friends on here. So thank you guys for taking time out of your evening to join and support. And just to listen to our story about Cyrus's medical journey. So I'm in DC right now, and my husband is Shahryar is in Los Angeles. Cyrus is obviously with me because we're finishing up our treatment. My husband just left after 3 months being out here. And I just want to talk a little bit about like what led me to choose a BMT versus staying on prophylaxis, instead of having Cyrus stay on prophylaxis treatment, and what made me choose the NIH. So Cyrus was full term, I had a healthy pregnancy, healthy delivery, and he was at around 6 months, he started to have perianal abscesses and just sores that wouldn't heal in damp areas. And so I thought, oh my gosh, my husband and I were just trying to figure out what was going on, but we had no idea. He would have low-grade fevers. And then just before he turned 2, we all got COVID, and he just didn't seem to get better. And not much is known about COVID, especially during that time, or during that time especially, and especially with children. So everyone had said, oh, everything is fine, don't worry, kids don't react so bad to COVID, but Cyrus just continuously got worse. He then complained of pain and guarded on his side. And so I took him to urgent care. We did labs, and the lab results were frightening. Took him to the ER, waited 8+ hours to get seen at our local hospital, Children's Los Angeles. And from that point on, it was just one craziness after another. He had every test that we possibly could test him for. And initially they told us that he had liver cancer, which was very scary. Little did I know what also was in our future. Then they thought he had TB because he had presented with he had a liver abscess, he had calcifications on his lymph nodes, and he had lesions on his lungs. And so it was a really scary time, and we just had no idea what was going on. And once the TB results came back negative, it took about 2 weeks because TB is so rare that they had to send it to a different state, and it just took forever. They pretty much immediately diagnosed Cyrus with CGD. I had never heard of CGD. I had done genetic testing. My husband did genetic testing. I had genetic tested my Cyrus. And that's when I discovered that whenever genetic testing is done, it's typically only about on 200 rare diseases. And I have recently learned that there are about 10,000 rare diseases. So I tried my best to have a situation and have a healthy baby. And I don't live with regrets, but I definitely wish there was more testing. And there are more and more tests that are available when a child is born now. And I am very happy to see that. Let's see. So with the diagnosis, we were told that he would need a BMT. Like, each hospital is different. Some push BMT, some don't. So our hospital pushed a BMT. They wanted us to jump into a BMT almost immediately once Cyrus's liver abscess healed. It took a while, but at that point they said, we want you to do a BMT.
And Crystal, which hospital you say your hospital? Can you tell our guests?
Yeah, Children's Hospital,
your hospital?
Children's Hospital, Los Angeles.
Okay.
And so I didn't know much about BMT. Ironically, this year, my husband Shadiar he received an email from Be the Match, now NMDP, saying congratulations on 15 years being in the database. Little did he know when he signed up, he would need it for his son. Just a little fun fact there. Anyways, so we thought, okay, here's a bone marrow transplant. We were told it was curative. I have recently learned that it's not curative for everyone. And so anyways, we thought, okay, let's do this BMT. Let's figure out what is the best way to support this child. We did not want to wait for Cyrus to get another life-threatening infection. And we also didn't want him to be on prophylaxis for life. That's what we thought would be the best quality of life for Cyrus. So upon diagnosis, I searched so hard to find a community. And it was really, really hard, and it was very lonely. And the hospital wouldn't connect me to anyone. They kept saying HIPAA and this and that. And I just wasn't that great with any social media at the time. And so ironically, the NIH connected me to Felicia at the CGDAA, and I asked her, please help me. This is what's going on. This is where we live. And she just opened the floodgates with love and connection and helping me understand as much as possible what was going on in this situation. Felicia, her son, had a transplant maybe 6 years ago or so. So how many years ago?
Yeah, it was in 2016. So yeah,
a little more. So anyways, it's been really wonderful. He's doing great. And I was able to think more clearly with someone who was giving me so much insight and connecting me to people that actually knew what they were talking about and had experiences. So I'm very grateful. And one of the things that I discovered when Cyrus was diagnosed is that I'm a carrier. And that is a whole other discussion. Cyrus is CGD X-linked, and a lot of carriers have a lot of symptoms and different symptoms. Most don't need a bone marrow transplant, but some do. So there's just a lot of things that I haven't yet to really sit with and wrap my head around myself, just because I've been so busy with Cyrus's health and life. So
yes, and so to jump in and talk about some of the things that you experience also, as you said, some patients don't go through a transplant or consider curative options, others do, and it really depends. It's what's different about CGD compared to other diseases is that there's no clearly delineated path. Each patient can be somewhat different. They can respond, they can have infections. Some patients go many years without an infection. Some patients have quite a few infections. And in our case, so for example, Sebastian went 3.5 years without a life-threatening infection. And that's actually the average. 3.5 years, every 3.5 years, a patient with CGD can expect to have a life-threatening infection. And ours was right on, like clockwork, on the dot. And so would you say, Crystal, that Cyrus was having a lot of infections or a lot of issues, and that also led you, or was he and I'm forgiving because I do know this, but for the audience, would you classify or consider him not as having not as many issues with CGD?
So I would say not as many. Fortunately, he didn't really have any GI issues. He had a little bit of like acid reflux, but not really any GI issues compared to what I've heard in our community. So we weren't necessarily having to deal with Cyrus having so many problems, but he still was hospitalized. His first hospitalization was for nearly 2 months. He was hospitalized 2 more times after that. So even though he didn't have any additional major infections, he still had things that were problematic enough for us to have to go to the hospital and deal with things. And I will make a side note that one of the times that he was hospitalized, we had to actually be admitted because he needed a bunch of testing. And if he didn't get testing, he would have had, if he didn't get admitted, he would have needed to wait like months to get some standard procedures like a CT or a bunch of other different imaging tests. And so, yes, we're very fortunate that he didn't have any other additional infections, and that the liver abscess was the largest by far, and nothing else really that major.
And that is very fortunate because so many patients do have GI issues.
Yeah.
Patients and families that are on this meeting right now, and whether it's what they call Crohn's-like condition or Crohn's itself, treatments that are first line indicated for Crohn's are what many patients with CGD do need to take, or colitis, and Cyrus did not have those issues, and they can be so severe and life-threatening in and of themselves. So then this is this decision that so many parents grapple with. And our decision we felt like it was kind of made for us because, as many people know, we landed at Duke, and it was supposed to be just a consultation. And they said, Felicia, you can't leave because he has a life-threatening infection in his lungs. He has 12 rapidly growing granulomas in his lungs. You need to stay here. You can't go back to New York. And after we got better, it was clear to us that we needed to make that decision. But in your case, this is what weighs so heavily on parents or patients with CGD. If you're doing well, and many people on this call are considering this right now, if you're doing well or well enough, how do parents make that decision? How did you struggle and get to the point where, and how did you manage that emotionally, mentally, all of those things that got you to a point that you felt that you could do this?
I will say that I never wavered in my decision to want Cyrus to have a bone marrow transplant. My husband definitely was concerned. He said, well, maybe he might not get another infection. Maybe, because there are cases where it's not that common, but there are cases where some patients, some CGD patients don't have a major infection for decades in their life. And then when some have it once and then decades later. And so he said, well, they could be, Cyrus could be like that. And I thought, I just don't want to find out. And so fortunately for me, because I was so set in my decision that it was the best decision for Cyrus, at least as half the household for Cyrus deciding, I never had to really worry about that. I was very comfortable. But the thing is our local hospital at CHLA, they do myeloablative chemo, which is basically high intensity chemo. And I was not okay with that. I thought there's got to be other ways. So I started researching other locations, and I looked at a few other hospitals. I looked at the NIH, but the problem with the NIH is that they only see children 4 years and older. And at the time, Cyrus wasn't even 2. So it was quite difficult to want to go somewhere option for us. And just because of Cyrus's age. So a factor for me was I knew I wanted him to have a bone marrow transplant. I just didn't know where. And I did look at Duke. I looked into cord blood, but fortunately Cyrus had a match, and he had a full match, a 10 out of 10 match. So we were very, very grateful that there was.
And who was your 10 out of 10 match? Was it through the National Registry program?
It was.
So an anonymous donor, you don't know who that is at this point?
Not yet. So it was Be the Match, and now it's an MDP. And we do know that the donor is in Germany. It's a male. And in a year, he can decide to reveal himself. And we really hope he does, so we can just shy of smother him to just show him our love and appreciation, and show him Cyrus and us get to meet.
Can I just say, as someone who could not find a bone marrow match because of my husband's mixed and my mixed ethnicity, the fact that you and Shadier found a fully matched 10 out of 10 donor, can you please tell me, so for the audience who don't know, what your ethnicity is and your husband's?
Yes.
This is one of the many miracles, I think.
So it is indeed. I definitely didn't have high hopes to find a match for Cyrus. So I'm Mexican, Filipino, and Spanish, and my husband is he's Iran Persian and French and Russian. So Cyrus is very mixed, and very fortunate to have a match, and a willing match. So a lot of times people match and they get the call and they decide they don't want to be a donor. And so we were very lucky that there was a match and that the donor decided to actually proceed.
And Shadier just posted in the chat that the odds of getting a donor like what you got was 1 out of 40 million. And of course, Shadier would know that because he's a math guy. He's a rocket scientist, so he's good with numbers. 1 out of 40 million. And and so that just gives everyone a sense. Never give up. If you feel that if you feel that, like Crystal, that a transplant is right, and you have mixed ethnicity, and you're worried about that piece of it, there are definitely things that you can do, from doing a worldwide search through Be the Match to cord blood to haploidentical. There are many different treatment modalities now. So do your research on that. Okay, so speaking of research, then you did not know this. I don't think we knew each other back then, but back in 2021, just do a little plug for the CGDAA. I had written about Jasper Therapeutics monoclonal antibody clinical trial at the NIH. And for those of you who don't know who monoclonal or what monoclonal antibodies are, it is a targeted type of conditioning regimen, in this case for transplant, that can target the protein that stem cells need in the bone marrow to manufacture themselves to live. And this is a conditioning agent that is used in this trial instead of chemotherapy or radiation. And I don't know all of the science behind it, but the idea is that because this conditioning regimen can target just stem cells and not other cells in the bone marrow and throughout the body that we need, that it can be less toxic. And I was wondering about your experience. Now, it's hard to compare to my experience where or other people's on this call experience where they had fully ablative conditioning. There are two different terms. There's myoablative and there's fully ablative. So a fully ablative, we'll just say fully ablative and partially ablative. So fully ablative means it's a full dose of chemotherapy, and partially ablative would be, a lower dose of chemotherapy. And so there's different thinking about which one is best for patients with CGD. And so that's something we can talk about, or there's some research on that you can look into, or you can talk to me offline, because some hospitals will do fully ablative, some will do partially ablative. But this is neither. This is a Jasper Therapeutics monoclonal antibody conditioning regimen. And so based on what you know about the conditioning and what patients experience before the transplant, during and after, what would you say? And in the article that I wrote, I also want to say this: the hope is that a lot of the issues associated with whether it's myoablative or whether it's fully ablative or partially ablative, like secondary malignancies, graft versus host, fertility issues, these kinds of things that are more of an issue with traditional BMTs will not be as much of a factor. So that's the thinking, that's the hope with this type of regimen with Jasper Therapeutics. So could you tell us, Crystal, what your experience was, and if you have can compare it to other people you might have talked to, what it was like for Cyrus compared to the traditional transplant route?
I will back it up for a moment and just say that because Cyrus was so young and he needed to be 4, we had to figure out what was it that we wanted to do. And because of the additional hospitalizations, it kind of kept us local. And we were fortunate to realize that a friend of ours happened to work at the NIH in the transplant team, not with CGD, but a different disease. And he really helped facilitate us organizing and communicating with all of the CGD community at the NIH to come in sooner, to get seen, to be able to decide that the NIH would be the place to go. So in January of this year, when we were talking to the team, deciding, we had initially gone for the first time to the NIH in August of last year. And so they said, well, if this is what you want to do, once he turns 4, as soon as there is availability, we will pick a date. And so they said tentatively March 2024. So we, in January, were talking to the team and they basically said, so are you still wanting to come? We said, yes. And they said, well, we also have Jasper Bakhtiari as an option for Cyrus, because we were initially just going to come to do a reduced chemo at the NIH. And when we spoke to them in January, they said, well, now there's another option, and this would be even less chemo, which was music to our ears. But he would have to do radiation, and not every institution has radiation as part of the protocol. So Cyrus had to do 5 days of CAMPATH, and that was really hard on Cyrus. That was the beginning of Cyrus experiencing pain, really, for a prolonged period of time. And I would say a month, starting at that point, a month before, we started to have pain of some sort almost every day. And that really affected his mood. It affected his approach to everything he did in the day. He just felt awful. And that gave him a lot of symptoms like like it's called rigors, where you have the like chills and kind of fever. And it was pretty frightening to see him experience that. And he had nausea and vomiting, stomach pain. He had then he had the Jasper infusion, which it ran about an hour. And then this is all pre bone marrow transplant, which was on March 29th. And then he had radiation, 2 doses of radiation, which required 2 doses of sedation in the same day. And that was also very hard to agree for Cyrus to have to do, but it was part of the protocol. And we didn't really have much of a choice if we wanted to do this specific institution. And so then Cyrus had his stem cell transplant, and that ran just about maybe 2 hours. The donor cells just ran, and Cyrus did really well with that. And then after that, he had the NIH does something where they administer Cytoxin, which is like a low dose of chemo, and that ran for 2 days. And then after transplant, he had to start taking something called sirolimus, which he'll be taking for about a year. And I will say that it was really weird to be hospitalized less time than. So Cyrus was hospitalized for 2 weeks prior to his transplant for conditioning and just getting his central line placed, having all of this conditioning with all the different infusions I just mentioned. But post-transplant, he was in the hospital for only 3 weeks. And that blew my mind. Yeah. I just could not wrap my head around the fact that Cyrus was inpatient for 5 weeks, which was shorter than some of his hospitalizations in the past. So it felt strange to have such a huge procedure and it not have to be Cyrus not have to be hospitalized for so long. So that felt strange. And I still feel weird about that. I don't know why I'm so set on like the time frame and just why I don't know why it matters to me. But in general, Cyrus did not have really any, he had 3 canker sores, and those were awful for him. But compared to what I've heard, people have them in all along they can have them in their mouth, in their throat, in their anus, just all along the way. And to what I witnessed, I have that. And Cyrus didn't need a feeding tube. He ate on his own. He stayed steady weight.
That's amazing too. Most kids need what's called an NG tube that goes through your nose and through your throat to the stomach. And the fact that he didn't need that is another
need any
that support. They're able to eat. I don't think he's able to eat the whole time pretty well. And so, yes, traditional chemotherapy can make children very nauseated. It can reduce their taste buds, even if they aren't feeling nauseated. They really don't want to eat because everything tastes like nothing. So that's something I didn't know, that Cyrus was able to eat the whole time. And Cyrus has a great appetite. For those of you who don't know, he's quite a foodie. Cyrus's dad is a classic French trained chef, and so Cyrus knows more about good eating and good food than I think a lot of grown-ups. And so it's really wonderful to hear that he was able to continue to enjoy food, which he loves so much. I think what also, there's some noise in the background. If everyone can mute their Zoom, please. If everyone can mute their Zoom. It sounds like someone's in an airport terminal, and I don't know who that is, but I'm going to go through and see who is in an airport.
I will say that if Cyrus didn't have those canker sores the last like week or so, he would have had no problem with eating. Because of the canker sores, it affected his eating and his mood and his pain, and that was very, very difficult to witness and to treat, because he did not want any type of numbing agents also. So I I'm very grateful that Cyrus was able to eat. He still had the desire to eat when he didn't have the canker sores, and he didn't need any additional assistance in any way to eat. And yeah, I mean,
That's an incredible point, because as parents, we always want to feed our kids, right? And that's one of the hardest things when your kids don't want to eat. It's just, that's when you really know that they're going through something, when you can't feed your baby. So that you didn't have that as another thing to deal with, or weight on your shoulders is a lot. That means a lot for a mom.
One of the things that was really hard throughout this medical journey with Cyrus was that many procedures, I had to refrain from giving him food, and he would ask me for food. And as a parent, as a mother, I think that was one of the hardest things for me, is having to say, no, I cannot give you food. No, I cannot.
The acronym is NPO, the most dreaded words, right? The most dreaded words are NPO, like no, what does it stand for? No something before something, I don't have to peer the O stand for, I'm sorry. What is it? But you can't eat for hours before some kind of anesthesia or procedure. And that's when children really suffer, because they don't understand why mommy's not feeding them or daddy can't feed them, and they're starving. And sometimes things are delayed for hours, and you're just trying to comfort your child, and there's nothing you can do.
Yes, it's very true. There was something I wanted to say, but I lost my train of thought. And I'm very grateful that Cyrus was able to skate through in that sense, with the not very many side effects. And at least initially, we don't know what the future holds, but so far things continue to go well. And he did have another hospitalization. He did have a fever, and he had some stomach pain, but fortunately we were able to deal with it within 2 days, and he was out. So, but what that did, that really, I guess, made him realize that he is not out of he has not completed this journey. And that really created a lot of regressions. He realized, oh, I could go back to the hospital. That sucks. Oh, I am still very fragile. And since then, which was about a week and a half ago, having him take meds, we've had a huge regression. So Cyrus is 4. He's been taking pills for the past year, and that's amazing. So from us having to be able to give Cyrus his meds and him taking them, always been a struggle, but we had graduated to pills, and that really was helpful. So this hospitalization has now made him not want to, he's wanted to exert his will. He has nothing. It is not very much that he can control. And so this has been what he has put his foot down on, and he does not want to take his meds. And it's frightening. It's frightening when you need to give your child meds that are helpful to protect him and
that are life-saving.
Transplant be a success, and he does not want to take it. And so it's become during all of his waking hours, I am trying to force pills in his mouth. And it is understandable. He's taking almost 25 pills a day. That's a lot. I don't want to take anything every day, let alone 25 pills. So I respect his resistance, but I also have no choice. And so it has resulted in me having to be creative. And I've just been really sad with having to resort to taking things away from him that give him comfort, like his pacifier, because I have no choice. So
many people don't realize that after you get discharged, most people want to be discharged from the hospital, right? But Crystal and I were talking earlier, when you're a transplant mom, you don't want to be discharged. I mean, you do in a way, obviously, because you know that your child is okay. But it also means that all of the medical care is falling on your shoulders, and the nurses who could administer these meds, who had a way to do it, who could, basically take on that role of making the children do it, and however they do it. Now it's up to the parents, and children respond differently to parents. I had a picture of all of the meds that I had to give Sebastian after we were discharged. They covered an entire dining room table, an entire dining room table. And it was my job to give him the infusions, to change the dressings, to do the blood draws, to do, these are things that a lot of parents don't realize, and the emotional toll that it takes. And Crystal is the definition of resilient. She is, and she is a CGD warrior. She's one tough cookie, as we all strive to be. Crystal is the living embodiment of a CGD warrior in the trenches, fighting. She's been fighting from day one for Cyrus. And one thing I wanted to add too, because I'm sure a lot of people have questions about Jasper and Jasper Therapeutics and this clinical trial. I went online, and if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, you can see more about it. What's interesting to me is it's open to people ages 4 through, I think, 65. And it's at several different sites across the United States. And so if you're interested in learning more about it, you can go online and see and learn more about
guys,
what's available. This is an example of the type of meds that he has to take. And Cyrus, as a 4-year-old boy, that he could take pills. I've met him several times, and he will have a very in-depth conversation with you. If anyone would like to ask him about the pills he takes, he said, "So Fisha, I take posaconazole in a pill because it is better for me than the liquid. I prefer it in a pill form. What do you think?" You know, and so this is how Cyrus can communicate. And what's really wonderful about CGD kids is that because they're kept a little bit more in a bubble and away from other kids, a lot of them are so intelligent, so well-spoken, so connected emotionally. And that's what's really, the silver lining about our community. These children are very special, and Cyrus is very special. And the fact that he can just take pills, a 4-year-old who can take pills, that in and of itself just shows you what a mature little boy Cyrus is. And Sebastian, my son, who's 12, loved hanging out with Cyrus. It was almost like there was no age difference when we've gotten together, these kids together. So never lose heart. If your child can't take liquid or has some issues taking medications, there are different options. Even though it's not traditional for children of Cyrus's age to take pills, I think all things being equal, it might be better to have it in pill form than liquid. Is that true? Even though it's a challenge to take so many.
Say that I think one of the reasons why Cyrus was able to take pills is because one of his last hospitalizations, there was our neighbor was a little bit older, and she was taking pills, and he saw her. And so I would suggest to some parents for them to hang out with other kids that take meds and have your kid watch them do that. And I think also with the graduation of taking pills for Cyrus, it reduced his nausea and vomiting. So he would throw up every time he got in the car. He would gag all the time from taking the meds because they were all liquid, and it was just terrible. It was terrible.
And they taste awful. Yeah, I've accidentally tasted some of my heart went out to Sebastian for what we had to put in his mouth. So there are things about pills that make it that make it a little bit more tolerable. And someone wrote, it teaches us the value of life. These kids know the value of life.
Yes,
they really do.
I did want to add just something before, we eventually led to questions, but I just wanted to say that even though this hospitalization was so called easy for us, physically on Cyrus, just outwardly, because he kept meeting his lab milestones, it was by far, it was not at all easy at all on him. I heard a cry that I had never heard him cry before from pain. I'm not even going to get into that because I will just cry for hours talking about that. I will say that him emotionally, he's just very fragile now. And he's also, he's much more difficult. And I understand that he's only 4, but to see such a drastic change during this, and it happened after transplant, it has been really, 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 this sweet boy not be so sweet.
Someone needs to turn off their phone.
And the trauma. And I'm not even going to get into the dressing changes, how difficult that's been, having them supposed to be every week and sometimes them having to be 3 times a week because of the dressing change, because he's young and he's active and it gets loose. And there's just been a lot of difficulties. And so in no way
Can I cut in and say also, because people might not know what dressing changes are,
yes.
There's a central line that is going into the central artery in a patient's chest for a transplant. And there is a large bandage that has to cover that. It is so painful to take this very sticky. It's not like a regular Band-Aid. It has to adhere to the skin. And if any kind of, anything gets into that hole, it's an open hole in a patient's chest, right? So if anything gets in there, it's dangerous. So we do have to keep it covered, but to remove this very sticky adhesive, it's like torture. Like, it's for the child, and then the blood-curdling screams are horrible. So that's another aspect to post-transplant life that everyone has to face, whether you do, a more innovative treatment or not. That is something that comes with it. I used to have a very special relationship. I was like, Crystal, to the word dressing, it meant like salad dressing or dressing up for a party. But now when I hear dressing, I think dressing change, and I think I'm forever traumatized because that's another thing that everyone needs to understand. You think you're discharged and you don't have to really worry about pain, and maybe there's not a lot of pain that is because you're dealing with because of the conditioning or the post-transplant effects. But this is a type of pain as well that can go on for several months until the central line is removed. And now we're getting to the question and answer period. I want to make sure we always run out of time. And we have we could go over as well. Chris and I talked about it because we have time. But I'm asking, or I'm guessing that there are people who have some questions who might want to know a little bit more about what it was like, or what this regimen or protocol might have that is different than traditional bone marrow transplants. If anyone has any questions, we can take them now, or Crystal and I can keep talking. So let us know. Anyone have any questions?
Well, as people are thinking about their questions, I just wanted to say that I am very, very grateful for everyone's support. I mean, there's so many people on here that don't know much about CGD besides that Cyrus has CGD, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for everyone that has just been sending us so much love, been lighting their candles with the picture of Cyrus, and I just, it's been very special. So thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Crystal, like I said, she's a warrior and she puts it out there. And that is so true for so many of us. Her emotion, you can see. And if you want to know what it's like as well, she is there almost every day on Instagram, giving you the raw experience, the emotional experience of what it's like to have CGD, where we feel so connected to her. She doesn't hold anything back. This is not an easy, as she said, I would never want to sugarcoat what going through a transplant is, the horrendous decision, the horrendous experience. No, even with, this kind of new innovative regimen, it is really hard. And anyone that tells you it's not, maybe they don't remember, or maybe, I don't know. I won't get into that, but the whole experience from diagnosis to treatment to after is so hard. And that's why we're here for each other, to support each other. So hard for me. I deal with trauma all the time, and we're just here to support each other. And speaking of that, if no one has questions, we are going to be in Chicago, and I'm getting so many beautiful chats. I don't know if you can see this, Crystal, but Mark just said, "We love you, Crystal," and there have been others that have said that they just are feeling so strongly that they just wish they could hug you, that we all wish, I hope you can feel that our arms are wrapped around you, and that we have been so moved tonight, and also through Instagram and also in person. And what's great about Crystal too is she's available. If anybody would like to speak with her, she is available to talk to. I don't know how you want to communicate that people can get in contact with you, but Shadier has been a really good assistant as far as putting the information about how to get in touch. So if you'd like to put that in the chat, Shadier. And this might be a good opportunity to segue to Shadier and talk, if you'd like to say hello and introduce yourself. He's the dad, and unmute yourself and give a little bit about, since I don't think we have any questions, a little bit of the dad's experience, because I also want to pay homage to the dads out there, to the men out there in our community that are holding it together. And he's been doing that. So could you also say hello to our group here, Shadier?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. Thank you for joining, listening to our story. It was your husband's book that was instrumental for me, because it allowed me to envisage what's coming my way, which you, of course, didn't have. You were facing, a dark tunnel. I had a little flashlight called your book, and appropriately titled "More Than You Can Handle." And it's such an appropriate title. And so Crystal has been handling almost all the brunt of so we decided to divide and conquer. Instead of me knowing a little bit, Crystal knowing, whatever. I said, Crystal, you become the doc. She's a licensed acupuncturist, so she's already in the medical field. And so I said, you handle, basically you take over and you be 100% there, and I'll be just your assistant nurse as far as that's concerned. And I'll take care of everything else, the home life, the everything else. I have, I just came home to literally a basket full of medical bills, which I have to go through, and things of that nature. Just life goes on, no matter what happens within your little family cocoon. And I'm trying to shield Crystal and Cyrus as much as I can from all that, so that they can concentrate on this journey. And Crystal has been doing a wonderful, wonderful job as far as not only about us, but also influencing NIH. She even had a meeting with the head of NIH, trying to show them how to run their hospital. And to that level. So try to help people coming behind, not just our own experience, but the experience of people coming behind us. It is very difficult. I don't know how else to put that. It puts pressure on you in a way that things that on a daily basis you could just handle or not think about or just go over it. It just amplifies everything, amplifies the smallest problem you have. It put pressures on the marriage, frankly. Just starting from us, pressure on my work side. People at work, even this week, somebody was joking about something. It was kind of a jabbing joke, which I usually take no problem over the past 30 years at my work. And I just exploded on the guy. And he was like, "Wow, Shadier, that's not you." I'm like, "Yeah, it changes you. All the reserves, all the emotional reserves, financial reserves. I mean, all your reserves get depleted real fast when you're in a situation like this." I'm just, I'm isolating. I'm not talking about Cyrus and his problems. I'm just talking about everything else that I'm, and it's more than you can handle.
It's so important to talk about this, because people do not have real conversations, number one, in general. And I've always liked to have real conversations, deep conversations. That's why I was a journalist way back when, so I could ask people. I had the authority to ask people, so what do you really think about that? What was that really like? No, I want the truth. And CGD has a way of making us face things, and you might not think you handled it, but you have, and handle things that we never thought that we ever could. And we emerge from this experience stronger, more adaptive, more versatile, more appreciative of, as someone said, what is truly valuable in life. And I also want to say, what it's interesting about this couple, Shadier and Crystal, we didn't talk about, is they're a total LA couple. Like, I've never met anyone more Los Angeles. Okay. Like, he works for a company that's based in LA, it's one of the biggest ones. And she's like born and raised there, knows everything about LA, very cool, couple that goes, to, the places that everyone wants to, like that they enjoy, they love California. So, moving for them, I think, was a little bit of an anathema. Like, they're like, what? I'm going to leave California? Like, why? Like, why would anyone do that?
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I did want to mention that, I was born and raised in LA, and I have lived in LA. I never left LA, only to travel. And there's a reason, because I love it, but also because my whole tribe is there. So deciding to leave and move cross country for at least 5 months was not an easy decision. And I really tried hard not to move. I really tried to make as many decisions as possible to stay local. And it just, Jasper at the NIH was calling us. And I am grateful that we made the decision to move, but it has not been easy. And the tribe, I feel it. I feel all of my tribe from afar, but it is, and I understand when you're in this environment, it's not like I could socialize with everyone, because we are in a sort of a bubble. So it's not like, it's just knowing that your people are within a close proximity makes a difference. And so I'm grateful for all the strangers that have stepped up and really just loved on us in such beautiful ways, and continuously showing love to us. It's just been, we've had so many strangers pay for our meal without even ever talking to us. And we've had just so many people send Cyrus gifts that don't even know Cyrus. We've had just so many people praying for Cyrus. I had a friend of a friend send us this beautiful angel chain of prayers from all of her friends. It's just been really amazing. And I did want to add that Felicia, along with her husband, put together all of their very comprehensive notes to make this book called More Than You Can Handle. And I read that a couple of times, and that really helped me understand to a different degree and depth of what a bone marrow transplant procedure, life, hospital life, family life really was like. And I'm very grateful that they made themselves so vulnerable to help people understand what a shitty situation this is, and that it's not easy, and that it's not fun, but you can and you will get through it. And I will lastly say that one of the things that people have continuously been telling me is, keep going, you're going to get through this. And it's just, Iris, why are you crying? It's so helpful to hear that, because when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. And also, this is 3 years into this medical journey, and I have been super resilient, but this past few months, it's really broken me. And
even the most resilient people and the strongest people can only take so much. And that's what is unique about CGD. It's not just, there's no quick fix. It can be lifelong. The time from diagnosis to curative treatment can be very long. It's a long journey, and to underestimate how it affects us is heavy. It is profound how it affects us. So that's why we're here. We're here to talk about how it affects us, not just physically, but how it affects us emotionally and mentally. And I do want to talk about the.
Let me make you fish.
I do want to talk about the
It's on mute.
the way that affects us in terms of moving from everything we know. And that's another thing CGD often asks of us, to leave everything that's familiar, leave healthy land that's familiar, healthy, normal land. First, we've got to leave that land. Then we've got to leave our tribe, as Crystal said, in many cases. I had to leave my tribe in New York and go to North Carolina where I knew no one. Because everyone in our community is kind of, different, and there are different hospitals that can specialize depending on the person's age, depending on the person's, whether they have a donor or not, depending on their condition. All of those things generally will ask of you to move. And that's one of the things we talk about at the CGD Association, that it's really good to do your homework, to research different hospitals, CGD centers of excellence, and find the place that's right for you, and try not to be daunted by moving. If this LA couple, which is so LA, and when I visited them, I mean, you should see their backyard. They've got beautiful, a garden there that you can just go out to the tree and pick a fig. It's hard to leave that. The weather, the everything that they have, their tribe, and they did it. They did it because, they felt that was the right thing to do, and things do fall into place. The NIH does have a lot of their programs are free. So that's one of the benefits of our government. So I do like to raise awareness for the fact that the NIH does offer their services free of charge. And once you do look at different centers of excellence, they have a lot of programs working with social workers, working with their housing, whether it's Ronald McDonald House. Many hospitals have donors who provide free housing, charities that cover housing if it's not Ronald McDonald House. There are so many options to make that move possible. If that's something that you feel in your heart, and after you've done your research, you can move across the country. And we're here at the CGDAA here to help you as well. Look at some of those financial pieces, because we're realists and we know that we all need to think about that piece of it, how we're going to cover that financially. And there are different organizations that can help you raise money, that can help you with free flights, that can help you with various resources that you need, whether it's a computer. We can give you free computers that you can use while you're at various places, free Wi-Fi, free hotspots. So I just wanted to let you know that we're here with you every step of the way at the CGD Association, and we can connect you with all the resources as well that you need, and many of them at least. And these two, this family is an example of what is possible. And I hope that everyone on this call sees them and sees what is possible. It hasn't been easy for them, and it's been in many cases more than they can handle, but they're getting through it step by step, and they're not alone.
And I think that these words really should resonate with everybody, because you really need everybody's help. And even then, you will not be quite on a positive side, but you can come closer to at least neutral. And as you see from Crystal and I, it's very difficult. I'm going to share really, there's another lady here, a friend of mine, who, so we have the medical modality. We have Crystal's mom is religious, so we have, that side of modality. I have another friend right here that joined us today, that she works with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and that gentleman is into meditation. And we even had a group meditation through that. I don't know how many people, Mariam, but thousands of people meditated for Cyrus. So we went through that modality. And whether you believe any of this or not is a different story. But you need all the help you can. I hardly drank alcohol. And this experience, I have become an alcoholic. That have been, unfortunately, my coping mechanism. And as Crystal said, we all try, and I'm not proud of it, but just everything. You need everything out there. And this association was tremendously helpful to us, starting from her husband's book, going to everything else. So you need, and because alone, forget about it. Just forget about it. So It's
Thank you so much, Shadier. And you know, it's these things that you do, like that you've said about what we do from my husband's book, More Than You Can Handle. Thank you for that plug, by the way. It's on Amazon. And our organization and our Zoom meetings and our articles that we write. But also, what we want to do is have more opportunities to get together, too. You know, in person. And so, if we can do that, that's really going to be the next step for us, because I've had the wonderful privilege of getting together with Crystal and Shadier and Cyrus, and such warmth, that just giving him a hug, just giving this family a hug, feeling, you know, my arms wrapped around them, feeling their arms wrapped around me, feeling their incredibly resilient warrior energy. That's what propels me forward. And so we're going to be able to do that in Chicago. June 20th through 22nd. Crystal's going to be there, which is incredible. She just went through this transplant. And I know that, you know, I don't think I had a life for like 2 years after Sebastian's transplant. So when Crystal told me she was going, I was so thrilled. And that's another example. I know it's hard for them to see it right now, but, you know, they're doing really well that she can go. And we're going to have a panel discussion on June 20th at 6:30. And I hope everyone marks their calendars for those who are going to the IDF PI conference. It will be a really great opportunity to not only hear from people like Mark Dwanzik, who's on this call, and Crystal, and also Carla Dean, who's an autosomal recessive patient. We're in our panel discussion, but it's also going to be an opportunity to eat Chicago food. I'm from Chicago. So deep dish Chicago pizza, traditional Chicago hot dogs, some pierogies, just to name a few. So I hope everyone will be there 6:30 on June 20th. And I'm really looking forward to it. And then in the future, I want to say thank you everyone for supporting the CGDA. We're going to be doing more work to get people together, wellness retreats, opportunities for people to just get away, take care of themselves, remember to take care of their bodies, their minds, their spirits, just like Shadier said, meditation. In my case, yoga has been a lifesaver. Anything that you can do to take care of yourself in this process is so important. Remember, you are valuable. You are important. And as Mark Dwanzik likes to say, you are enough. Right, Mark?
I'm trying to get Cyrus to.
Yeah, actually, I helped this organization in LA. It's you got maybe Crystal, you've seen the billboards. You Are Enough down in.
Yes, I've seen it once already.
Yeah, so I helped that organization. It's simple slogan. You are enough. That's all she says. She doesn't have send money here. Just you are enough. She puts them all over LA. So that's really important.
Through this organization, we had the beautiful luck of meeting Mark. He came over. I spoke to his wife. I mean, this community has helped us in that level. Like physically, he came and stayed with us. We had dinner.
Yeah, but I got to eat one of your meals, sure. So that was like that's way better.
And I just put a picture. Like even the Queen of Iran has wore the T-shirt that Crystal is wearing and support. I mean, everybody has come in and it's been so helpful.
This is just one little example of how special this community is. And there's something about CGD. Look how resourceful and how adaptable we are. I did an article about how our immune system can represent our personalities. Think about how our immune system has had to adapt and survive. And now we, as people, are adapting or resourceful as well to live. And we are learning and growing and adapting and connecting. This is how we're moving forward, because we know, as to use that word Crystal said, tribe. We need our tribe to do that. And this is our tribe. And I am so grateful for our tribe. That's why I started the CGD Association of America, to create a tribe. And you can feel the love and the closeness. Several of us know each other. Many people on this call I've met personally. I call Aaliyah, just out of the blue. Hi, Aaliyah. She's there smiling. She calls me. We have that kind of relationship here, and it's just so special. And I'm so glad. CGD sucks, but look at the people who are in it.
So
They're
two
some of the best
things I
people I've
wanted
ever
to
met in my life.
share.
What?
One thing is I wanted to share this. One of them is I've started to leave messages for Crystal telling her that I am here. I'm here to support you, right? Not just the fact that I am here and I've been here since day one, but just communicating like that, I love this woman and, we're going to get through this and also preserve our love intact or perhaps stronger on the way out. But right now we're in the middle of the forest. So I love you. Okay. And I'm here. And another thing that Crystal said, she said, and this is the strange part. She said, if we would have tested more when we did the genetic testing, and we would have found out that this kid had CGD, logic had it, chances had it that we would have probably decided not to have it, knowing the immenseness of this. And I am so glad we didn't test.
Well, we didn't have that option.
No,
Right.
but now, today,
And thankfully,
2020 hindsight, I am so glad, not because of the experience, but because he's an amazing kid.
he's
And I
an
love
amazing kid.
just
And
like
the same is true. I think about that because, with amniocentesis and the type of diseases it looks for, what would people do? We would not have these children. That's something that's a story to think about. That's a topic to think about that is very profound. And that brings tears to my eyes because of the wonderful children that we have, because of Mark that we have, because of all these people on this call that we have, whose lives are so meaningful and so beautiful. And the people, CGD makes beautiful people, and I look forward to seeing what Cyrus is going to be up to years from now. I know I'm going to know him for the rest of my life, and I can't wait to see what the future unfolds for him and Sebastian and for everyone on this call. We're all going to be together for many, many years and watching each other do amazing things and supporting each other. I need your support. I need everyone's support too. It's hard for me. Some days I think, man, nobody really cares about what I'm doing here. I'm plugging away, writing any newsletters. Anyone going to read it? So thank you. Anyone who sends notes saying I read your article or, just gets in touch and shoots me an email. It makes me keep going too. So we're all in this together. And if there's anyone who wants to be involved, do anything with the CGD Association, volunteer, we're open to all the support we can get as well. Please come to the Immune Deficiency Foundation event, the PI event. Many of us on this call are going to be there June 20th through 22nd in Chicago. I'm kind of closing now. If there are any other questions, please let me know. We've went over time. But if there's anything else, please send an email. I think there are things in the chat that I think we've addressed all those. Mostly it's love for you, Crystal and Shadier. So I hope you've got all those loving messages. We recorded this and I'll edit it and we'll put it on our YouTube channel, CGDA YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone.
I don't know if you mentioned he's the first kid to go through this regimen in the world.
That is something we also didn't know. I did not know that.
He's the first kid with CGD at his age. He's the icebreaker boat.
Right, because I think the protocol is open to 4-year-olds, and he just turned 4 to 65, so he's right there making news. And here we are, reporting live and making some groundbreaking news right here. So you heard it here first at the CGD Association of America Zoom call, where you can come to learn the latest, learn things that are going to help you hopefully on your CGD journey and have some love along the way. Thank you all for your support, your love, and for being here. It means so much to us all. God bless you.
Felicia. Thank you, Felicia, for doing all this.
Thank you.
We're all standing shoulder to shoulder with you. I'm going to send these chats to you, Crystal, and hopefully that gives you some strength for the journey. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Thank you for everyone coming, and thank you, Felicia. Thank you so much. Do you want to say bye, Cyrus?
Bye.
You don't want to come here and say bye?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Love you.